Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Kevin at DealerFire, checking in with you at 10 a.m. Central Time. We're just about ready to rock here. I think we're going to go through just a couple things introduction-wise, logistics of the webinar console. We'll introduce Paul and Jesse, obviously, as well. And while we're doing that, hopefully anybody last minute pops in can kind of catch the full content of this. Just to give you a heads up on this, we are recording this session, so anything that on the screen as far as slides, that'll all be downloaded to or uploaded to a YouTube link and shot out to you in a follow-up email. So that's just a reminder in case you are attending. And also, if you register, but if something pops up and you're not able to attend, you still get that session recording. So always make sure when you get that email or that notification from your account manager, it's always a good thing to register because you get this content sent to you and you can watch it on your own time. So just a few things to start out. First of all, as far as introductions go, Paul Cashman, Jesse Tatter, they are our account managers, and they are the two AMs that we had that actually attended the digital dealer session. Jesse actually went to the Atlantic City digital dealer this spring with another one of our account managers, and she gave a recap on that as well. So Jesse will probably provide some more insights based on both shows. But for the most part, this is going to be a recap of digital dealer that happened just a few weeks ago, actually, in Las Vegas. Since the 17th digital dealer that they've had. So some really good content. Paul and Jesse will both give you kind of an overview of the hot topics. They'll go over kind of the DealerFire side of things, and we'll get a little bit deeper into the content that actually happened, industry trends, etc. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen here. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is, as always, if you have any questions, on the right-hand side there, you do have a questions module. As Paul and Jesse are kind of going through this stuff, I'll try and answer as many as I can if you have any, whether it's on our content or just in general. Anything that's not answered by the end of the webinar, we'll make sure that your account manager follows up. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. And we'll kind of jump into it. So we'll start with Jesse. She's going to jump into some introductions on Vegas, and then she's also going to talk a little bit about some hot topics there as well, too. So Jesse, let's go ahead and check your audio, make sure that you're coming through loud and clear for everybody.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I think that's perfect.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, Paul and I had a great time in Vegas. We had a lot of great conversations with dealers, potential prospects. We ate some good food, even checked out the fountains at the Bellagio, so that was a lot of fun. As Kevin mentioned, I was at Digital Dealer in Atlantic City as well earlier this spring. And there's a lot of overlying industry trends that I saw from show to show. So we're going to go through those. Paul and I will. Kevin, if you want to switch over to the next slide, please. We will be touching on third-party leads. Are they necessary? And we've kind of talked about this topic through and through, but we're going to give a little bit more information on that. Paul will also be touching on mobile, the importance of responsive altogether, relationship marketing, as well as efficiency in dealership practices with your vendors inside and outside of the dealership. With that, I will let Paul take it away.
Hey guys, one of the big things that we like to do with every show is talk about DealerFire's point of view there and kind of our purpose for going. Obviously, it's a trade show and we want to make dealers aware of the products and services that we offer, show them how we can help them out and how they can help us out and how we can get new business that way. But a lot of the other things that we try and do when we're there is network with potential clients, our current clients. It's good to see old friends and make new ones. And then kind of just get our message out there. Right now we've been really pounding out first-party leads and how your website can be a huge producer of those, and we'll get to that a little later. But also our digital marketing and responsive sites. Mobile's a very important topic these days, and more users than ever are going to it. And actually the next slide talks a little bit more about how mobile is becoming even more popular for customers. Responsive and non-responsive sites. I believe that not just the car industry, but every industry is moving towards responsive websites, just because you'll be able to see a full website with the same URL on any device. So whether it's a tablet, a phone, or a computer, the user's going to get the best experience possible that you are going to give them on a computer. And that's what we want to do with car dealers, is just give them this experience so that they'll be able to find the information they want. If they're doing any sort of digital marketing, that it would all be on one URL, and also to give them the best chance of converting right there. With the new iPhones that just came out, Samsung Galaxies, the Notes, these phones are getting bigger and bigger, and people are using them for more things. They're not just texting and checking Facebook quick. They're using it to do research. They're using it to send emails. They're using it as their main device, and that's when responsive really becomes important. One of the things that responsive sites have kind of caught up with in the car industry, a year ago there wasn't as many plugins available, but now a lot of companies have started building responsive plugins. So there's chat plugins that are responsive. I believe that Kelly Blackbook is coming out with one that is going to be responsive too, and things like that. So you'll be able to add those plugins to your website if you're using those. And if you're not, DealerFire actually has a lot of these plugins or alternatives to these plugins that we offer, such as our finance forms and things like that. Kind of leads into the next one about third-party leads,
And
which
Paul,
has been a really...
Paul, I just wanted to
Go
add something in there as well too. He touched on it perfectly in the terms of plugins being readily available now for responsive. So if any of you were at NADA in New Orleans earlier this year, that's really when the responsive conversation started. And it's when the first 2 or 3 responsive platforms were released. So now we're in, October? So we have almost pretty close to a full year worth of data from our responsive websites. And if you have not yet received or downloaded the white paper study that Christian Salazar did for DealerFire on responsive websites, I definitely invite you to do so. If you need that link, you can find it on our DealerFire website. Otherwise, you can get it from your account manager. But I would definitely take a look in the terms of simplicity, especially for websites. We've definitely made a transition from sort of throwing every call to action that we could at a customer into doing more of a user-dictated experience on site. And that's really a key for what we're getting into and what Paul's going to talk about with relationship marketing and a few other things as well too. But as far as the white paper study, definitely invite you to check it out. If you have not yet upgraded to responsive or are not yet in the process of doing it, that's definitely a conversation that you have to have with your account manager. They will have it with you. They should have already. But it's been an extremely hot topic leading into Digital Dealer. And then obviously once we get into NADA San Francisco early next year as well too. So I just wanted to add those points. Paul, I'm going to send you over to your next slide now for third parties, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you, Kevin. Third-party leads versus first-party leads. Obviously, DealerFire as a company, we've really been hounding people on this. It's been a huge part of our company's advertising. It's been a real hot topic this year. We've had a lot of conversations with dealers at our shows and also just on the phone and in the dealership about how they can eliminate some of these third parties. A lot of these conversations start with AutoTrader and Cars.com, but I mean there's a lot more to it than that. One of the biggest things that we talk about is investing in your own company instead of investing in these third parties, and that's kind of where we've seen our biggest results is that money that someone uses for an AutoTrader can be used to promote their own website instead of them taking it and promoting their website, which would then send that lead to you. So that's kind of where we're at on the third party. One of the things that really I think gets overlooked is the conversion. So while company or dealerships may look at how many leads they got for an organic search on a blog or a custom landing page, or how many leads they got on their website from PPC, they maybe didn't see the leads that came in on the phone call because they didn't have call tracking. The leads that came in through the dealership that was first sent to their site from pay-per-click advertising or organic search. And these are what's called assisted conversions. And actually now there's a tool in Google Analytics where we can see the assisted conversions. So if someone landed on your site the first time from pay-per-click advertising and then came back 2 or 3 more times and finally filled out a lead on direct traffic, we can attribute that lead back to pay-per-click. So it's important not to just use the last conversion as the main conversion, but take a look at those assisted conversions so that you know the full story and you can see how your pay-per-click is working and how your organic search is working. So all that information is helpful to use together. Third-party leads have been, a lot of dealers, like I said, have been questioning whether or not they can continue doing them. There was even a session at Digital Dealer in Vegas that Kevin Fry did where he talked about, whether or not you need them or not. But it's becoming a matter of expense and whether or not the dealership wants to make that cost commitment to a third party or invest that money in themselves. And we're seeing a lot of dealers switch to using that money on their own site in their own brand so that they can get those first party leads, which as we all know are much better leads and convert more than a lot of these third party leads. Jesse, you want to take it over on relationship marketing?
I was going to add something to that quick, Paul, as well before we jump into Jesse. But as far as the presentation that you mentioned from Kevin Fry, I think it's important for everybody to kind of, ingest the route or the connotation that third party. It's almost a 4-letter word in most dealers' vocabulary now. And Kevin Fry's specific session was called "Do you really need third-party leads?" I think that's pretty significant for an industry that was heavily reliant on AutoTrader, Cars.com, other inventory listing sites, and now kind of taking back the power, as it were. Even in our booth, I think Jesse and Paul were telling me that one of the number one questions that was being asked was, how can I move my AutoTrader money, or how can I get rid of AutoTrader, just with the amount of money that's put into them. And Paul, I don't know if you mentioned it, but there was a interesting stat that Kevin kind of put forth, and that was people are 5 to 10 times more, have to view more VDPs on AutoTrader and Cars.com to convert a sale versus your website. So read that again. Customers are 5 to 10 times have to see more VDPs on AutoTrader and Cars.com to convert to a sale. So pretty profound there. And then also, as he was talking about with assisted conversions, take a look at VDP views. So especially if you're using the DealerFire responsive platform or somebody else's responsive platform, you can actually see that click trail as far as where those assisted conversions are taking place. And if your VDP views are going up, obviously that's people looking at inventory, just like they would be on AutoTrader and Cars.com. So a significant stat to take note of. We've mentioned it in previous academies. You can easily provision reports for that as well, or view that in Ignite as far as most popular vehicles or stock numbers, but definitely something to take note of there as well too. So I will hold my peace now, and I'm going to send it over to Jesse to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, so with relationship marketing, this was an underlying theme from Atlantic City that I saw in many of the sessions, if not all the sessions, touched on relationship marketing in some way, shape, or form. And it was a biggie in Vegas as well. So not only are we selling to the generation of Gen Y, but we're also eventually going to be working with them. Whether we are Gen Y or not, dealers are going to be hiring them, and it's important for dealerships to really understand the way in which Gen Y business people want to learn and want to work. One of the sessions, I believe, this was kind of a cool quote that I picked up, but and it was millennials just want to be respected, and that's really what it is. Obviously, everyone wants to make a buck with whatever job they decide to go into, but not only that, it's just important for them to feel confident about what they're doing and what they're selling. So in about 10 years or so, 75% of the workforce is actually going to be Gen Y. So whether you're working with any Gen Y kids nowadays, it's going to be important to really focus on your marketing to not only sell them, but also bring them into the dealership to work for you. So this is sort of an industry wake-up call that dealers may need to focus on, and not only just bringing them in, but also respecting them and treating them a little bit differently than you may other salespeople in your dealership. With that being said, another biggie at the show was a booth and the whole underlying theme of hierology. It's something we saw a lot of in Q4 in general, and just we're seeing a big push to hire Gen Y people. So that being said, it doesn't take just any person off the street to come into a dealership and work. It takes a little bit more effort than that. And there's a whole niche dedicated to pulling in these types of people into your dealership and really making sure you have the right people on your team, as well as a well-rounded group of people, not only just for your BDC, your sales, but also for your service, your social media as well. And that is something that DealerFire has also helped with for some of our dealers. I know Kevin specifically has a campaign running in which we've reached out to Gen Y customers and potential employees in order to get them to find some interest in working in the dealerships, whether that's through social media marketing in Facebook or PPC ads as well. Not only are millennials important in this sort of relationship-focused marketing, but also just the whole idea of minorities. Spanish is becoming much more desired language for dealers to know and understand, and especially in the major metro areas. It's important that dealers are able to market and work with Spanish-speaking customers. So not only just having, say, habla español on your site, which is actually, in fact, kind of the complete opposite of what you should be doing. Your site itself should be translatable into Spanish. And not only your site, but you should have people on staff that know how to speak Spanish and can convert conversations into Spanish. And DealerFire is also providing these types of services for some of our dealers in translating websites. That is a service that we offer, as well as translating content for custom pages, ads, and social media posts. So with that, I'm going to have Kevin switch on to the next slide, please.
Yep, and I just wanted to mention one thing about that stats. 10 years, 75% of the workforce will be Gen Y. So specifically at the show, there were two guys who started out in the Jim Pattinson group, Nick Williams and Kevin Gordon, and they kind of brought this stat up in the fact that they're focusing obviously on millennials, but their big thing for the show, which I thought was maybe the most interesting part of the show, was that when they were starting up their internet department, their BDC department, they actually treated it a lot like a startup. So they actually treated it like a small business within the dealership structure itself. And they were with a pretty big auto group. So they were able to kind of set up processes, set up their infrastructure for technology how they wanted to. But their marketing, their advertising, whether it's traditional or digital, all followed a startup process. If you guys, if you could research Nick Williams, Kevin Gordon, they're part of a new company called Convertus that they kind of took outside the Jim Pattinson group. It's a really cool story, relates definitely about the workforce, the customer base, but it's a unique opportunity, I think, for a lot of dealers to kind of take that startup attitude and really apply to their marketing to give themselves their own brand. We've been preaching for years. Paul talked about it earlier with first-party leads. It's not just content, it's actually building a brand around yourself. So really interesting story there. I'll jump to the next slide here for you guys.
Cool, thanks, Kevin. So yeah, really quick, wanted to jump into dealership efficiency and just the importance of identifying and applying efficiencies in the dealership practices with vendors and just with your dealership as a whole to reduce costs, improve growth, and maximize profitability. So that being said, using DealerFire is a really good idea as far as reaching out to us, your account managers, in order to make sure that your website is really appealing to customers in a more relationship and brand focused situation. So instead of reaching out to customers that might not necessarily be part of the buying process at this point, in fact, 96% of our market is not actually ready to buy a vehicle, but really optimizing your site in order to build a relationship with potential customers down the road. So doing your research, looking at Google Analytics and really understanding why it is we're putting certain calls to action on a certain VDP or any other part of your website. Be objective when you're trying to apply new marketing strategies, and be objective when it comes to your site overall. Use your account manager, ask them why you're adding certain things to pages, or if you have questions about new fads or anything like that, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to explain that a little bit better, or at least look into it if we're not aware of it. So instead of really taking the time to try to sell the customers, really build upon the site and all of your strategies. So instead of focusing on buy now, focus on the big picture, build long-term brand-oriented messages, and focus on who you are as a dealer, your brand, your mission. It kind of coincides with my last slide about relationship marketing. Really streamline your processes and take a look at what it is that's working inside and might work externally in your marketing. Kevin, if you have anything else to add on that, please do. Otherwise, I know you were going to touch a little bit on the Wolf of Wall Street.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. So yeah, before I kind of get into the keynotes, which is a very interesting topic in itself, efficiency is a big thing. I just wanted to kind of review those topics, those hot topics that we talked about again. Obviously, mobile, responsive, those are two big things. Third-party leads, whether you're going to use autotradercars.com, relationship marketing, and efficiency. So one other thing about sort of that Gen Y segment of people. So we use reporting, we use analytics, we use actionable data for pretty much everything. And I hate the term big data. I wish no one would ever use it. I think it got a lot of flack a couple of years ago at DSES, and I actually still hear people saying it today, which is kind of unfortunate. But big data to me kind of means the number dump. So basically throwing as many stats at your face as possible, trying to confuse you. Whereas actionable data, that's actually using Google Analytics or whatever analytics platform you typically use. There's different services, even like SEMrush, etc. But by using those, you're actually able to make marketing strategies, dealership processes. You're able to get feedback from customers. And for Gen Y, keep in mind that all DealerFire websites, and if you have a website with somebody else, that's fine as well. But we have universal analytics installed now. The changeover was made about 2 months ago. And you're actually able to check or track, things like demographics, so age, gender, even interests to some extent as well too. So I'd invite you to kind of work with your account manager, maybe dig into analytics a little bit more, even more than the monthly, once a month report that we send. That's just basically your traffic, and your referral traffic, your landing pages, etc. So something to dig in there for sure, and kind of start discussions off of the big Gen Y segment. So with that, I'm going to get into what is considered the most controversial keynote speaker ever at Digital Dealer. And the first reaction I think a lot of people had, dealers and vendors alike, were kind of like, as it says here, what the hell, right? The Wolf of Wall Street, a guy known for essentially scamming in order to make his millions, went to prison, basically deceived thousands of people. His story is really a story of redemption, and that's what his main, take-home item was from his presentation that he gave. But originally, I think when this was announced, a lot of dealers were a little skeptical, especially since in an industry that has long been sort of labeled as the not the nicest, not the most trustworthy, and people are trying to break out of that. It was kind of an interesting choice. There was even an article on Jalopnik. I'm sure many of you read Jalopnik that was picked up, and the title of it was "Dealers are pissed that the Wolf of Wall Street is giving their keynote." So one thing that I wanted to kind of add about this is that although it was controversial, I think a lot of people kind of took home the word of Jordan. Jordan Belfort, by the way, is the original Wolf of Wall Street. And one of the things that I think it was Jesse earlier that mentioned is that customers just want to be respected. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line of what they're looking for when they walk into a dealership or when they give you a phone call, submit a lead. That's what they're looking for, and that's what we're trying to kind of sway the industry into presenting. So that was pretty much right a part of Jordan's message was, the respect factor. So he went through a lot of trials and tribulations in order to kind of make those connections, and sharing his story is kind of like a cautionary tale. So that's just one thing that I wanted to put on there. If you attend a digital dealer, I would love to hear your thoughts on how you thought Jordan did. I know Paul and Jesse both thought it was an interesting session. And another thing to note about this, Jordan packed the house, obviously riding on the success of the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, packed the house, and people stayed longer than I think we've ever seen people stay at any other digital dealer keynote. So you can argue whether or not the selection for speaker was great for the topic or for the industry. But I think in the end, his message really resonated with a lot of people. Maybe what we'll do is have your account manager send you that Jalopnik link. Otherwise, you can just look it up online as well too. But it was a really kind of knee-jerk reaction from a lot of industry people. You can also look it up on Twitter as far as what people kind of responded to from there. So with that, we're going to close it out here. I guess we'll leave just a couple minutes for like a Q&A if anybody has any questions. And while you're either writing those into your module or writing them down on a pad of paper and submitting them to your account manager later, the last thing that I wanted to mention, next month, DealerFire Academy, it'll be myself and Calvin Krusik, who is our SEM specialist. And it's called Google versus Facebook versus Bing. Where do I begin? We've done something similar to this in the past as far as getting more creative with your spend, but a lot of people don't even know where to begin with this. So is it better to have Google ads, Facebook ads? Is it better to advertise on Bing? What does a Bing customer look like? I bet a lot of you didn't know that a Bing customer converts at a much higher rate than a Google or a Facebook customer. And then also the fact that Facebook, if any of you saw this article recently, basically just opened up their ad platform to different apps. So it won't be housed proprietarily in Facebook anymore. So it's definitely expanding, giving Google and Bing a run for their money. So that's kind of a little preview of the next academy. You can register for that at dealerfire.com/versus. Otherwise, there'll be a registration link in the email follow-up that you get along with the session recording tomorrow. But other than that, we look forward to seeing you next month, which is going to be, let me just check the date on that. That is going to be November 12th at 10 a.m. So again, once you go to that registration link, you'll be able to see that from in there as well too. So if there's any last minute questions, go ahead and answer them in. We'll leave this up and running for a little bit. Otherwise, thanks again for joining us. Jesse, Paul, awesome job. We'll definitely be getting more feedback from you as NADA, Kane Automotive, Digital Dealer Spring, a lot more shows coming up. So we'll be here to provide more insight for everyone. So thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next month.